Fit like a D, Danny Min here, and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. And we're back at another industry roundup of another mod that we could possibly be using during the Around the World in Time. This industry mod is Magnetic Reaper's Advanced Industries, or I can't remember what it's called actually, but it was done by Magnetic Reaper. Now, this was a great mod, fantastic. I absolutely loved this mod. Now, it was removed from the workshop, so Magnetic Reaper removed it. For reasons unknown, don't know. The problem is when mods get removed, the page that the mod is on, it just says unavailable. There's no comments or anything. There's often no explanation for why mods get removed. Sometimes it's because they've been upgraded or they've been moved into a pack with other vehicles or other assets, so that you can download the whole pack and not just individual vehicles or assets or industries or whatever. So there was no sort of heads up or anything, but I have all my Steam mods are backed up in a separate file, so even if they are removed from the workshop, I can pick them out of that backup save file, place them into the Transport Fever 2 mods list, and it can still work. Because when this mod was removed, I was heavily deep into the UK series I was on the last time, and I'd used a lot of these. I definitely used the dairy here, the cheese was up and running, the meat factories. So it was kind of a bummer. There was someone who was asking for this mod, and at the time I told them it had been removed from workshop. It has been re-uploaded to workshop by someone else, I'm assuming with the modder's permission, because you can't just take mods that are not on workshop or transportfever.net, ones from Transport Fever 1, etc. You can port mods over from Transport Fever 1 to your heart's content and use them in your own little playthroughs, but you can't repost them on Steam Workshop, transportfever.net, modworks.com, etc. because that is someone else's work, that is someone else's build that they've took the time to make, and it's entirely up to them whether they put it on the workshop or they remove it. But you can't then take it and put it back on the workshop and claim it as your own unless the modder gives you express permission to do so, because that is their work. So this one I'm using here is the actual backup file I had and that I've always had, but it is on workshop. If you type in Magnetic Reaper's Industries, it is there. Now I don't know, because roughly halfway, well, before when I had it, when the mod was in the workshop, it worked great. There's a few things that I couldn't get to work now when I used this from my backup saves. Like, for some reason the towns no longer will accept mail and newspaper, which is odd, but it worked before. So I don't know if that's an issue with the backup save file that I used, or maybe the one in workshop does have it working again. I just don't know. So, but that's something we shall go into. So yeah, so for example, I've ported quite a lot of mods for this new series from Transport Fever 1 to Transport Fever 2, because there is an immense amount of stuff was made for Transport Fever 1. Some modders have sort of updated and transferred their stuff across, which is really cool. But I was speaking to one modder, and he was saying that the process, now that you've got the Transport Fever 1 to Transport Fever 2 mod converter, the process is so simple. He said there was no point modders sort of wasting time porting all their mods when anybody who has very little computer knowledge can now go in and do it. There are tutorials on YouTube on how to do this. I would advise construction gamers Transport Fever 1 to Transport Fever 2 mod converter. He's got a great way of showing you. Now, obviously, complex things are really difficult to port across, and you need to be careful. Standard things like vehicles and assets, yes, they're easy. Things like entire industry packs, very difficult. Functioning things like something like an airport or a train station could be difficult because even though the train stations work the same, there's obviously the ability to configure them now and add stuff. Then you won't have that ability if you port stuff off from the Transport Fever 1. But yeah, buildings and certain vehicles are quite easy. For example, there's a lot more ships that were made for Transport Fever 1. There's some cool planes and stuff that haven't been ported over for Transport Fever 2. And you can do that. It literally takes a couple of minutes if you do it step by step and do it correctly. It should work just fine. By all means, download like a flat map like this, just a fresh map with absolutely nothing on it, and use it for testing your ports first. Don't port stuff and then add it straight into a save game. Always have a test map. If it's a train, for example, build a depot and a station and then a line that goes across. Check it out, make sure it works, and make sure that you're actually happy with the quality that it's ported over with. A lot of Transport Fever 1 models look wildly different from the models in Transport Fever 2. It's just the way that the graphics were in Transport Fever 1. There's nothing you can do about that, so the textures and things might look rapidly different. So if you're happy to have the model and have it have different textures, etc., by all means, use it. If not, then it's entirely up to you. I saw a couple of trains that I wanted, and obviously in Transport Fever 1, a lot of the textures, like you couldn't see through carriage windows, etc. They were this sort of weird reflective sort of surface, or sort of grey or blacked out. But in Transport Fever 2, you obviously can see through all the carriage models. You can see the people sitting inside, and etc, etc. Some of the building textures as well for assets are rapidly different, or wildly different from what building textures are in Transport Fever 2. So always test stuff out first. I would imagine, though, that the person who re-uploaded Magnetic Reaper's industry mod probably had the same as me. Probably had it in a backup save, which I always do. I always download stuff, copy every single file, place it in a folder that's outside of the Steam Workshop stuff, and then it's there if you need it. If a mod goes, you can find that mod, replace it back into your game. Don't change the names of the files. If you change the names of the files after you've already used it in a save game, when you go to put that in, the game won't recognize it because it's under a different name. So yeah, but I would imagine this is what they've done, and then they've probably asked permission for Magnetic Reaper, from Magnetic Reaper, to re-upload it into the workshop. Because I know for a fact, when this mod was removed, it killed a lot of games. A lot of people were using this, and I seen in a couple of forums that a lot of save games were left sort of high and dry, because industries are a critical thing when it comes to a save game. If a industry mod gets removed and you're using it, you won't be able to re-upload the save game, because you'll have vehicles and stuff moving to an industry that no longer exists. It's not there on the map. The game can't load that industry because it no longer exists, so it sort of craps its pants, and it's like, nope, you can't have this today. So it is kind of bad. There are cases in which I've seen modded industries be removed, and I've still been able to load the save game, but the industry in question has reverted back to something else. For example, the GK's goods without plastic Right, so JK is goods without plastic. Has the standard goods factory, but it removes the need for plastic, so you can just send steel to it and it'll make goods. But it replaces this. It replaces the standard in-game goods factory. Now, if that mod gets removed, all the game will do is it will keep your goods factory there, but it'll add plastic. It'll just reintroduce the old industry back where the new one sort of was. So you can still sort of play through. Obviously, it will no longer work by just adding steel. You'll have to add plastic some way, somehow, to it in order to get it to make goods. But it won't completely destroy your game, so you need to keep an eye out for that. Now, this mod here worked great as well with Coloquin's, or Coloquin, I can't remember his name, but I'm doing that industry mod pack next. But it worked great with the diverse industries mod. This was awesome, and having the diverse industries mod as well, and have them both working in tandem was absolutely great. It gave you so much more variety in industries that you could use and utilize. And then for some strange reason, something went wrong, and they started to overwrite each other. Like the sawmill that produces wood pulp or sawdust to make paper. For some reason, you would not get the sawmill that did that anymore. It would just produce planks, and you couldn't produce this for paper. And obviously, as I said, the newspaper used to go to a tip. So you used to be able to go into the editor. You could go into residential and you could select mail or newspaper. But it's not there anymore, and it's not in commercial, and it's not in construction materials. There is more stuff been added, but yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's my version, my backup save game version of the mod. I just don't know what has happened. It worked completely fine. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, we'll never know. Unfortunately, maybe it's something that's happened to somebody else. Just don't know. So here's your standard industries, though. And as you can see, so this has been added, and the only thing it's done is it has replaced the sawmill. As you can see, there's no standard sawmill anymore. It's not here. You can't pick it from this section. It's completely gone. The only sawmill you get is this one. So this one here, if you give it 3 logs, it will create wood planks, and it will create wood pulp that you can send to make paper. Yay! So apart from that, there's other stuff. So there is mail. The rule is that this will create mail. So you could have it randomly somewhere on the map. It will create mail. You can send it into a town or village. They will accept it, etc. We've now got grain to make bread. So before, the standard food factory is gone as well. I should mention that. So there is no standard in-game food factory. And instead, it's a little more complex. So you get grain. You send it to a bread factory. Alright, yeah. So you take the standard in-game grain farm, you send it over to here. It makes bread. Now bread can be delivered to a city if you wanted to. You could have it as a commercial good. I think that's a really good idea for people who are maybe playing a very early playthrough, the 1850s, etc., because advanced food or like ready meals and tin food and stuff didn't really become available till later. So providing it with the standard food, so you could go in here and you could select bread. That now accepts bread. So like a beginning city in the 1850s, if you want to be realistic, could get bread and construction materials, bread to feed the population, construction materials to increase the build rate of the city because you need construction materials to build new buildings. And if you had the DDR mod pack, you could also have briquette being sent. So you could go in here and do briquette, and that could be the fuel for the houses. But for some reason, none of these want to accept mail. So right now, the mail industry can't do anything. You can make it, but you can't send it anywhere, which is unfortunate. Now, that might change once I add Coolquins, or I can't remember, or can't even pronounce the name properly. But that might change once I add his diversity mod, because then that does give them the ability to take mail. So we'll check that out in a minute. So yeah, so this makes bread now, which is great. Now bread can be sent to a food processing plant, and you get this little shopping trolley icon as well. That can also be configured for cities as a commercial good. And as you can see, it also accepts milk, meat, cheese, which I'll get to in just a second. Now we've got, milk, the dairy farm. So you add grain to this, it produces milk. You take your milk, you send it here to a cheese factory, and voila, there you go, you've made cheese. Then that can be sent to the factory, and it can also be sent to these shops that I'll show you in just a minute, or it can be sent over here, and they accept alcohol, coffee beans, meat, cheese, bread, and then they accept the standard stuff. So they will accept like alcohol, meat, cheese, the bread. They will accept them as standard in the cities. So again, that is the milk chain, the dairy chain for cheese. We've got the coffee, so this makes coffee fruits, and it can be sent here. There you go. And now in the diverse industry mod, you can actually send coffee beans to a food processing plant like this, and it will make it. It's slightly weird. That's why I'm doing each of these separately, but in the next video I'll mash them both together and show you how it works and what the sort of issues are, because there are a couple. So yeah, standard grain again to your cattle farm, and then you send your cattle to the slaughterhouse. It gives you meat. Again, meat can be sent to the food processing plant, or it can be sent to a city just as raw meat for people to eat, etc. And then we've got our we've got our paper. So wood, you go away please. So standard wood factory or forest, send it here. 3 logs gets you 2 planks and 1 sawmill, 1 wood pulp. So the wood pulp goes to here. It makes paper. You can also send your paper here to a newspaper factory, but for some reason we can't get the cities or towns to accept newspapers at the moment, so it's sort of like a dead industry. But when it comes to it, when we add the industry diversity mod, this disappears, and you can't make this, but you can still make this, just in a different way. Also down here we've got the shops. So we've got the pub. Now the pub accepts alcohol. It's a great little thing, this. You can place this in a city. You can even place it out in the country. It's a little country pub, and you could send a truck out, send alcohol to it. Did I mention alcohol? Yeah, alcohol is just standard grain to the distillery to make alcohol. There you go. There it is there. Yeah, so you can make alcohol. You can send it to the pub. There is this as well, which is the quick bite. So it's kind of like a restaurant. So this will accept alcohol and food. Once you deliver both, this will sort of level up. I don't think it changes. It remains the same building. But there's the pub, and there's the quick bite, which is a little restaurant. Over here we've got the cheese shop. So this, you just send cheese. It accepts cheese. It's happy to accept cheese. Again, you can place it in a city and it will work. Here is the tool shop. So this will accept tools, and it will also accept planks. and that's pretty cool as well. I'm sure this just used to accept tools. No, I think it did always accept planks as well. But there's the tool shop again, can be placed in a city, etc. The hotel, the Java. Oh no, this is the coffee house. So the coffee house, yeah. The coffee house accepts coffee beans and it gives you money. And we've got the butchers. The butcher will accept meat and give you money. So they're all in here. If you go along, they're right at the end. So you've got the cheese shop, you've got the tool shop, you've got the coffee shop, the butcher shop, the pub, and the quick bite, which is basically like a little fast food or restaurant area. So yeah, you can attach these to a road, have a depot or truck unloading next to it, and it works just fine. But we'll go and build them out, and I will prove to you that they work. Maybe not the mail, maybe not the newspapers. And it's kind of weird because I remember distinctly that newspapers worked just fine, but they will maybe work again once I add the diverse industries mod. We'll have to wait and see. But we'll come back in just a second once everything is up and running. So, here we are, back again, everything up and running, place for everything and everything in its place. We'll start off first with the alcohol distillery. So standard grain, we've got some grain trucks there picking up the grain. The alcohol gets delivered here, or the grain gets delivered here. It gets produced into alcohol. Alcohol goes along. Now you can set the editor and you can actually have alcohol. So the whole city will receive alcohol. But what I think is best is having this. So you've got the quick bite, which accepts alcohol and food, and you've got the pub. So they are consuming the alcohol that is being delivered. Yay! So that works perfectly fine. People actually go to this. As you can see, there are people walking to and from it. So it sort of acts as a sort of like people magnet as well. So that is kind of cool. On to the next industry, coffee. So coffee fruits taken across to a coffee processing plant where it makes coffee beans. Again, you can set the entire city to accept coffee beans if you want, but I suggest using the Java, the coffee house, or the cafe. So coffee beans are being delivered here, works totally fine, no issues. Again, every single vehicle or wagon or whatever will take this. They're quite almost generic. So any vehicle that's got all cargo will take literally any of this. Like for alcohol and milk, etc., you don't need tanker trucks or anything. They will just go in standard like curtain siders or container trucks. Your standard goods truck will take everything. I mean, grain and sort of wood pulp and stuff will go in vehicles, open top vehicles like this. But even a all cargo variant will take a wood pulp and grain as well. I just like these because that's what they're supposed to be transported in. So alcohol and coffee done. Now cheese. So to get cheese, you have standard grain farms. So they are taking the grain to the dairy farm. The dairy farm is producing milk, as you can see here. For some reason, line 6 at Upper Provo should only be loading so yeah, the grain gets delivered, it gets turned into milk. So the actual food processing plant will accept milk on its own in order to produce food. So we've got a route delivering some up there, and then we've got some getting delivered down here, and we are delivering it to the cheese factory. So the cheese factory is transporting stuff to 2 different places. So the cheese factory is going up here because again our food processing plant will accept milk and cheese in order to make food. And it can also go to the cheese shop. So the cheese shop is this little building here. As you can see, it's getting some massively productive. The reason is because I threw this together quick. I didn't bother setting any of these set these lines up as basic as possible. It looks like grain is being diverted to other places, and it really shouldn't. It should just be dropped off here. So you need to go in and configure everything. So this is actually picking grain up and taking it back to here. So always be really, if you've got more than one, say the grain farms, these are grain farmers supplying two different industries. So always be really that if one is not as busy or has got too much storage, then the trucks will actually take what they're taking, the raw material, and then they'll actually take it back to where it came from. Because it adds more to the stockpile, so it needs more to go up here to the bread factory. So that is something that happens. That's why you've got the managed line, tell them either load or simply just unload at a destination with specific cargoes. But yeah, so our cheese is here. So it takes 2 milk. See, that's an issue. And this takes 2 grain to make 1 milk. So you need a lot of grain to make milk, and you need a lot of milk to make cheese. But yep, they will go to the cheese shop and they will go to the food processing plant, and they work just fine. Now bread, so standard grain up here, this is the bread factory, so they're making bread. Bread goes along, it comes into here. Again, you can tell the entire city to accept bread if you want from commercial buildings. It's better, I like it better to go here to the food processing plant where it can be turned into actual food. Now maybe in a starter map, 1850s, 1900s, it'd be great to sort of add, have towns accept bread, milk, meat, cheese, because refined foods weren't really a thing. Basically they just got the raw materials and people made what they had to make from them. Nowadays though, in the world of plastic and packaging, yeah, this refined food would definitely be a thing. So you could maybe change it up. You could always have these little buildings as well if you want, which I think are magnificent. I think they're great. These are a nice little touch, these shops and buildings that accept stuff. I'm pretty sure, I'm sure there used to be a hotel in here. Maybe there isn't. Maybe I'm just being weird. Anywho, so that is the food, that is the bread even. So the bread gets turned into food. Last food production chain is meat, so grain. And then 2 grain equals 1 cow, or 1 cattle, or livestock. It is taken down here to the slaughterhouse, where it gets shredded, and then it gets turned into meat. So meat, again, can go back to here to make food. It can also be sent down, and we've got the little butcher shop here. As you can see, it's starting to get meat. Excellent. Now, that is it's just pretty much done, almost done with the little shops. Now, most of these goods here provide a commercial need. There's not much industrial. In fact, I don't think there's any industrial goods can sort of be made here, because I'm pretty sure that tools is a commercial need. So you can't produce any industrial goods here. You can only produce commercial goods. Fine, totally fine. I love that it adds that variety of more things, commercial goods you can deliver to a city. So yeah, meat up to here, food. Food processing plant creates this refined food here. Now this can go to, we've got it set up to go here as well to the quick bite, because that also accepts alcohol and food. So we've got alcohol and food being delivered here from one of these trucks. Don't know which one it is. This one? No, that's the line that goes into the city. But we've also set the city to accept food as well. So all these buildings down here, commercial buildings, accept food, and they're getting 100% supply rate. So the food, processed food is coming down here, and it's also going to this truck stop here, and it's going to there. Now, the last couple of industries. So, wood, pulp, paper, and the tool shop. So, we have logs getting picked up, just as you do. Standard logs. Comes down here, and now this takes 3 logs, it gives you 2 planks and 1 pulp. wood pulp kind of range together. These trucks will take the wood pulp and one so it looks like they're from empty. So planks come down here to your standard tool factory, drop off the planks there, and it makes tools, and then we've got planks and tools both being delivered to here, so you can see there's a little stockpile of tools, there's a little stockpile of planks, and it's starting to level up. So that is the tool shop, which works really well. I like it, I think it's cool. Back to our wood pulp. Our wood pulp comes from here and it goes over to this factory here, the paper mill, or paper factory, and it makes paper. So one wood pulp gets you one piece of paper. Awesome. This truck is taking paper across to the newspaper printer, or newspaper press, and it's delivering paper over here. Now this is where the journey ends because there's nowhere else that will accept newspapers. Now, you used to be able to configure residential buildings to accept mail or newspapers. You can't now. I don't know why it's not in the editor. I think it used to be in here, newspapers. It might come along once another mod pack is installed, but I'll have to wait and see. I think it might become a thing once I add Colloquin's diverse Colloquins or whatever. I can't remember his name. God, it's so annoying. Yeah, I think because he adds mail as well. There's a few mods that add mail, but yeah, I've got this set up as well. And then the off chance that even though I couldn't select the editor accept mail, I set up a mail truck. So this is production 150, but it's shipping to nowhere. There's nowhere to ship it to because nowhere really accepts it. Now I'm going to build another town over here as a little test. Alright, Savannah, you want stuff. No newspapers or mail. Nothing. Destinations, suppliers, overview. Yeah, you used to be able to change it in here. I think you maybe can. I've just remembered how you can actually add this. I think maybe. So what we're going to do is push pause, right? And we'll come back in just a second. So, here we are, back again. And it works. I figured it out. So, the standard town that we place first only accepts, it accepts everything now. That's great. So there's newspapers, there is mail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's sticking. The town literally will take absolutely everything. So in order to get this to work, I had to use the expanded demands mod by FxUK, which is a mod that I've always used. That's why it's always worked. But what it does is, instead of giving you the 2 random goods or selected goods that you're choosing, it will add up to 6 or up to 4, or you can have one that accepts 2, and as the city gets larger it accepts 4, and then it accepts 6 as it gets even bigger. But I've selected the one that accepts 6. Now as you can see, newspapers are there, and so is mail. So the paper is coming down here, it's getting made, newspapers, there you go, and then it gets delivered up here. Now obviously it doesn't say anything there until you click on the city. There's all the stuff that it wants and or needs. If you go into here though, so there you go, these buildings all around here will accept newspapers and mail. They're residential buildings, which is great. You can't go into the editor, and well, you can select this as none and that is none, and then that removes some of the stuff that you maybe don't want. If you go into the editor again, we'll say this maybe wants tools, this maybe wants, I don't know, machines, and then that will give you your 6 again. So you can sort of configure it to what you want to a degree. But yeah, it works totally fine. So as you can see, there's two male. So we are picking up two male. These guys, well, that one's got logs. This one's got newspapers. So it does work, but you need FxUK's expanded demands mod in order to get it to work. There you go. I couldn't remember. I couldn't understand why it didn't have the demand for the goods, but now I do. I've always had FxUK's mod installed in pretty much every playthrough I've ever done, because I thought it was pretty dumb that Urban Games changed it to just 2 goods per city. I think it should have always been 6, etc, etc, or 4 or whatever it was previously. But yeah, this works totally fine. This will add the demand for newspapers and mail, which I think every town or city should have. Every town and city gets mail and newspapers. It's just the thing. It's just the way of the world. So it's really cool that actually works. So in order to get these two industries to work, mail and newspapers, you must have FxUK's expanded city demands mod installed. Also, make sure that FxUK's expanded demand mod is before the rest of your industries in the mod load order. So make sure it's one of the very first mods that goes on, because if it goes on after, it couldn't get to work. Maybe it does work, but I just couldn't get to work. So I rearranged the load order to make sure that the expanded demands mod was the first mod that was installed into the game when it loaded up. So there you go. Everything works. That's Grim Reapers. No. I can't remember. Something Reaper. What was it? Go to one of his industries. See if it's got it. Cattle farm. No. Maybe in assets. No. What was his name again? It's not Grim Reaper. It's I can't remember. But it's in fact, if we go to load, right? So now when you go to load, Magnetic Reaper. So I love the fact that when you load games now, you can select mods to add to it. That's really good. As you can see, I've got the playthrough maps here. They're back. Well, actually, when you guys watch this, there will be more of these, because these are being recorded all at once, and these come after. Yeah, so Magnetic Reapers Industries works totally fine. Now when I do the next industry pack, you'll see that some of the things don't really work together. It says that they do, but there's some things that get removed, so we'll check that out. But yeah, it works totally fine. The newspapers, the mail, all the shops work totally fine. All the industries are fine. There's no issues with having to find vehicles or download special modded vehicles in order to take the goods that you're producing. All the standard in-game vehicles will do that. In fact, a lot of the modded vehicles that I've seen as well will also take most of this stuff. There's very few that won't. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, it gives you a little bit more diversity in what you want to transport, what you want to make. Mostly on a commercial goods basis. As I've said, there's no industrial good here. It's all commercial goods. But yeah, you can set your editor, have it pick up any of these. If you have the expanded cargo demands mod on, then you don't really need to, because the city is going to want absolutely almost everything anyway. So yeah, but we'll leave it there for that little episode. We'll be checking out another industry pack that is configured to work with this, but I need to sort of test it out because I've noticed a few things that are slightly abnormal. So yeah, this mod, Magnetic Reapers Industries, was removed. It's been put back on. It's great. If you're ever worried about packs like this being removed, because they will destroy a save game if it's removed, then go into Steam Workshop, go into the mods, find the file and place it in a different folder. So if it does get removed, it will be removed instantly from the Steam Workshop folder on your computer. But if you've got it saved in a different place, you're fine. You're good. You'll be able to re-add it, and all this should work fine without breaking your save game. Always back up modded save games. Although in my past experience, I have had save games break, even though I've got a backup save. Which is kind of annoying. Don't know how or why that has happened. But it's always a lottery when you're playing with mods. But this one is exceptionally good. I really like it. So there it is. So that's going to be it for this episode. As always, if you did watch this and you would like to leave a like, comment or dislike, please feel free to do so. And if there is more you would like to see in the future, then hit that subscribe button. But I've been Danny Man. This has been Transport Fever 2. And I will catch you later.